Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another day of our virtual book launch for San Bernardino Singing. So this is an event put on by Inlandia Institute, a literary nonprofit organization serving the Inland Empire, and also the publisher of the anthology that we're talking about today. My name is Christina Guillen. I'm Programs Coordinator for Inlandia Institute, and I'd love to introduce today's guests. Today we have Tom McGovern, we have Kathleen Alcala, as well as a special guest, Deenaz Coachbuilder, who have all come today to join in a conversation about this anthology, and they're all contributors. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tom McGovern. If you can introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself and about your contribution to the book, and we'd love to hear about it. Thank you. Oh, go ahead and unmute. Yep.
I'm sorry about that. Okay. I need to share my screen with you. Okay. There we go. Are you seeing my screen?
It's getting there. Yes, we see.
Okay, good. I'll go for full screen there. Nice. So you see pictures of some kids on a playground equipment. And so I've been living in San Bernardino since 2000 when I was hired as a professor at Cal State San Bernardino, and I'm a photographer. And one of the things I like to tell people whenever I talk about my work is that I'm one of the few photographers I know who doesn't have this great desire to travel to far and wide and exotic places to take pictures. I just walk out my door in San Bernardino and I look around and I see what I think is kind of really amazing things to look at. I'm also a social documentary photographer, so I want to make pictures that speak to the time that we live in, so to the people and places. And so working with Inlandia is clearly a perfect fit for me. And I've also been, of course, proud and I'm honored to be able to work with my poet friend Juan Delgado. And he and I have done numerous collaborative projects, and Juan and I are the authors of a book called Vital Signs with my photographs and his poetry. So I wanted to just show you a couple of other pictures here these are not in the book, but that's all related to all my San Bernardino work. And I got really so fortunate to be able to work with the Anderson School, and that's a school here in San Bernardino for kids with special needs. And if you know someone with special needs, or if you have a kid with special needs, the word special should be really big and really bold with exclamation points, because kids with special needs definitely, are going to be needing certain extra attention, certain extra care, and certainly going to be a lot of fun and interesting to hang out with. I must say I've been in a lot of schools, never been to a school like the Anderson School. And it's the most kind of loving, kind, warm place you can imagine. While also, of course, teaching children life skills, and some of the students there are fairly high functioning and can do all kinds of cool stuff, while those other students are not. And so they kind of are able to adapt to everybody. This was a moment when the kids all went over to the National Orange Show, when they have the big event every spring, and they bring all the amusement park rides in. And this little girl on the left, of course, is like kind of squealing in delight. And the woman on the right is one of the teachers, who's actually a grad student at Cal State San Bernardino also. It's a whole group of everybody hanging out, and you've got that great mascot there. And the students from the Anderson School are just super enthusiastic and so much fun to be there. I mean, of course, there are some students who are disabled to the degree that they, don't really react to a whole lot of things, but most of the students are really kind of engaged in it and have a lot of fun. It was also really cool, this little girl in the white shirt there. I almost cried after I took this picture, because a teacher was standing next to me, and this little girl, her unfortunate disability is such that she looks like she's very unhappy most of the time. I mean, a scowl on her face. And this was one of those moments where both me and the teacher turned to each other and like, oh my God, she looks like she's happy and enjoying, her environment and her life. And we were both just kind of blown away. It's one of those moments in photography where you feel like you captured something magical that we just don't see every day. And again, I look at that now, and it just really choked me up because that little girl really looked unhappy most of the time. And so it was a great pleasure and privilege to be able to hang out with the kids. And of course, the kids are doing all kinds of fun and goofy things that behind me, you don't know it, but there's all these other kids laughing at him and goofing on him, and like all kids would be doing. So that was kind of really a fun part of it as well. Yeah, and this little young man right here, he was super animated. So here he is purposely trying to look serious for everybody. And everybody's laughing like, you don't look like that always. Anyway, it was really great fun. And as I said, it was such a great experience as a photographer to be able to explore the city and our community. It's also this beautiful thing that when you have a camera, people will kind of invite you into their space to take pictures. And I don't sell any of my pictures. I give everything away. Thank God I've got this wonderful job at the university that pays me enough I can afford to do that. So when I worked at the Anderson School, I gave them all the pictures. And one of my colleagues and I, we were able to get a grant from school where we published the yearbook one year. So we were actually able to print all the copies, and he did all the design work, and I had all the photographs in it, including pictures of a prom and everything else. So it's to me, it's really important that my pictures have some kind of impact in the community, that I can give something back. And that's what's so great about being involved with Inlandia, since it's a nonprofit and it's really about giving back into the community. So I'm really proud to be part of that. Do we have time for a few more pictures?
If you like, we can show pictures a little bit later. I'm going to be opening it up to all of you again, and that way I can introduce.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, let me introduce Deenaz, because Deenaz actually used to work at the school, and
oh, really?
About it a little bit before. Let's see. I can put her.
Yeah. I
Okay,
wanted to
Deenaz.
talk to Thomas.
Go ahead.
So Thomas,
Yes.
I was the principal of Anderson School for many
Oh my gosh.
Over 10 years.
Oh my gosh,
And,
that's fantastic.
and I agree with you. It's a wonderful school. And once you come in association with the students and the teachers, it just changes your whole perspective. It changes your life. You come to honor and respect people who are not the same as you, who don't have the same abilities, but who have beautiful souls and beautiful spirits. And Anderson is really a unique school. You know, Anderson School provides an opportunity for parents in San Bernardino to have an option for where they're going to place their schools. Not many school districts have that option. Most of them are integrated onto regular campuses, but for some parents and some students, that's just not the right match and the right mixture. And this allows a lot of students just to flourish and to come into their own. So I'm thrilled that Anderson is not forgotten, and it's part of your memory.
It's a wonderful place. I was just so honored to have that little teeny bit of experience with them. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Deenaz. Okay, can we hear from Kathleen Alcala? So I'm going to make sure that you're not muted. And now you can go ahead and speak. Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks a lot to Inlandia for putting together this anthology. Thank you, Christina, for hosting us. And I want to thank Nakia Cheney for choosing my short story to go in this anthology. I grew up in San Bernardino. I was born in Compton, California, and on my first birthday, my family moved to Devore Heights, which probably doesn't exist anymore, up in the San Bernardino Mountains. And we lived there until I was 6, and then we moved right into town. And I grew up on the corner of 16th and H Street, about 2 blocks from San Bernardino High School. So I went all the way through school there. And I was reading about Tom and Juan Delgado and your book, Vital Signs, and I noticed I guess it was Juan Delgado or you who said that your daughter came home and said it was another pepper spray day. Was that you, Tom?
That would be Juan's daughter, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the kind of days we used to have when I grew up there. It was a very rocky time. And I think it was very hard for many of us. We did get pepper sprayed on a regular basis by the San Bernardino police. And this was the late 60s, early 70s. So there were some photos taken of some of the riots that we had, I think by the photography teacher, as a matter of fact, at San Bernardino High School, who was seriously injured during one event. But his photos were used by the paper and then later showed up in our yearbook. So I have very mixed feelings about what it was like to grow up there. I also have very wonderful feelings. I think because we lived in such a rural area when I was little, I've always had a great affinity for the mountains and for the desert there. And one of the things I've noticed is that when I start to write anything, and I have 6 books now, both fiction and nonfiction, is that I start by writing a description of the landscape in San Bernardino. That's like my grounding image that I have to start with, no matter what I'm writing about. And then once I have myself sort of mentally established in that place, I can reach out and try to get the imagery for the story or article that I'm working on. I think one reason I became a writer was certainly because of San Bernardino. One day when I was a freshman in college, I went to Stanford. Somebody came up to me and said, "Read this essay. It's about your hometown, but I never believed you." And so guess what essay it was? Do you know?
Anyone know?
It's Dreamers of the Golden Dream by Joan Didion.
Oh, Joan Didion.
Oh,
Right, which was
yeah.
included in a volume at that time called The New Journalism, which was a very big deal. And so it was a revelation to me that anyone would even think about writing about a place like San Bernardino. It just had never occurred to me that I had a lot of the material I needed as a writer right there from growing up in San Bernardino. So that sort of got me started. This was my first story collection. It's called Mrs. Vargas and the Dead Naturalist. And some of the stories are certainly set in San Bernardino. But I do think that place has a very deep effect on who we are and how we relate to the world, what is important to us. My most recent book is called The Deepest Roots, and it's about where I live now on Bainbridge Island. And the photographer is like you, Tom, in that he doesn't see why he necessarily needs to go anywhere else to look for images. He is a documentarian, I guess that's what you call it, especially about the people who work in agriculture on the island. So that's my orientation now.
Very good. Thank you, Kathleen. So we'll go ahead and jump to a video. So this video also features Kathleen and some of her stories and some of the other artists and writers.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Alcala, and I'm a contributor to the San Bernardino anthology. I'm going to read today just a bit from my story, The Match, the Leaf, the Soaring Spirit. At first, you think you imagined it. A little flicker out the side of your eye, the pattern of leaves moving in the breeze, casting a shadow onto the worn linoleum floor. But then, the distinct smell sharp in the front of your nose of something burning. Finally, the crackling sound of something surrendering, being utterly, hopelessly consumed by the flames. And it is glorious, a ritual, a prayer, an offering on the altar of the badly swept floor to the wild gods of chance, those cruel little men who never gave her a chance. She always denied it. Of course she did. No one ever saw her start one. Notice the missing matches or the scraps of paper in her pockets. They were nothing. Like her life that had amounted to nothing except a handful of piano students, a few musty books that once belonged to her father, and a couple of drab second-hand dresses. She had been pretty when she was young, high cheekbones, hair that turned reddish in the sun. She and her sisters used to do each other's hair. They were always together, but after she went walking, just that one time with Enrique, her mother had taken her to the doctor, just to make sure. She almost died of embarrassment, a good way to guarantee she would never show her secrets to a man again. But, oh, that afternoon, they sat on the grass and laughed. He told her stories about places she had never imagined, places he had been stationed in the Navy. He told her stories she barely understood. At first, she laughed to be polite, but then she laughed to feel it inside her lungs and mouth. It was like swallowing a soap bubble, making her giddy and light. He lit a cigarette, cupping his hands around the flames to protect it from the wind. He blew his breath in long streams that faded away before his face. What did he look like? His face had faded too. Afterwards, he let her hold a lighter, flick the wheel that made the spark. She felt different that day, more alive, as though a veil had been pulled back that usually kept her from hearing and seeing so much around her. The grass had been warm and prickly, and neighborhood boys were playing catch with a baseball, heckling each other in Spanish.
In San Bernardino, we have the seasonal Santa Ana winds that usually come in the fall. There's a nickname for those winds because they're so vicious, and it's called the Devil's Breath. This poem is called At the End of the Devil's Breath. July, wilted cereal in a bowl, we drown in brown boiling milk. The haze of sparklers and fireworks add to the deafening heat that drips into August. Caged in by smog, air smells of cigarettes and melted tar. Surely this place is meant to ignite. September, when he arrives, he thinks this is a flat plain, where desert dirt covers everything like snow and sweat is meant for breathing. But then, October, and the devil's breath flaps up lotion, claws skin with its vicious teeth, yowling roof beats whoosh and bend of threatened windows. Tree leaves sound like ocean, stripped dry, littered bare limbs. The hard ones snap, ripe for a switch. Used to be gangs of tumbleweeds round the streets. Now, solitary wadded balls of rootless limbs roll by. November is a postcard miracle, surrounded snow-capped crisp sky, where our eyes hang glide like eagles. We perch low in the valley shadow, straining to see the Walk of Fame. Sunset in Hollywood, Palm Springs, peer into the pier of the Pacific. Every mountain peak is paramount. He says if it weren't for the devil's breath, I'd never know where we are and just how beautiful.
Here goes San Bernardino Singing. Thank you all. San Bernardino passion. Bite into the slushy passion of persimmons out here and sink into the orange membranous skies of San Bernardino. Its fully barbecued forest fires, its chocolatey mudslides. When its skin is taut and ready to go, ooh-wee, ooh-wee, it's persimmon passion, all right. Bite into San Bernardino and it'll bite back.
Okay, hi, how did you enjoy the video? Well, that video had a lot to do about fire. And I love Kathleen's story because there's one character in particular who loves fire.
Well,
She
she
has
does.
a very, she has a fascination with fire. And I'm really curious about her and that connection to San Bernardino, or other elements in the story that are inspired by San Bernardino. So Kathleen, where did you come up with this character? And can you tell us about that throughout the book, her fascination with fire?
Well, it wasn't very hard to come up with at all. Like some of the stories in my collection, Mrs. Vargas and the Dead Naturalist, she was inspired by my mother's very large family. And they were storytellers, but they only told these stories when they got together as a group. And part of it was just our origins as crypto Jews, I think, where a lot of information was only shared within the family. And they always had this notion that they were a little bit different from other people. And so Amalia, which is in this story collection, and Gypsy Lover are both inspired by different scenes. And also, sometimes you made things up, or you thought you made things up completely, and then someone will say, oh, how did you know about that? I have a story called Gypsy Lover, and after it was published, my sister said, how did you know I talked to a gypsy? Of course, it turned out as Roma, but at that time, people would threaten their children, you know, that you don't behave or you don't stick with me, the gypsies will steal you. And then I had several unmarried aunts, and Ignacia was inspired by one of them, who either was a kleptomaniac or fires just spontaneously broke out around her, right? So we'll never really know. But in fact, much of that story is based on fact.
Wow, and you mentioned about Roma, and you know, I love the way that the story shifts from the Ignacia's point of view to Roma, and then how they end up meeting, and then the shoes, that she gives her the shoes to kind of give her some hope, some of the life that she never got to live.
Yeah, it gives her a little power. And I think that's what a lot of my stories are about, this notion of transformation. I think that's what, when people call it magical realism, that's really what they're talking about, is a point at which we're able to transform ourselves into a different reality.
So my other question about your story is, so the connection to San Bernardino, was there anything in particular? Like, was the fire inspired by that, or that was actually your aunt that had fire already?
That was something that actually happened at our house, 16th and H Street, where I grew up. And I think the house is still there. I graduated from high school in 1972. So it would have been, you know, maybe 5 years before that. But also, of course, we all think of San Bernardino as being something ready to ignite. I love that poem that you showed earlier. It's just so much a part of how we grew up in such a, I remember the very first fire I saw was as a little kid in the San Bernardino Mountains and looking out the front window of our house, and there was this big orange ball in the eucalyptus trees. And I finally went and got an adult and I said, look. They said, oh, the trees are on fire, there's a fire, you know, and everybody started running around. And so it was, you know, fires are very attractive. They're very magnetic to the human being. And also I think of fire and ignition as being associated with storytelling, right? Because we always would sit around the fire from when we became human, right? And told each other stories. Later, we sat around the radio and listened to stories. And later, we sat around the television. And then the computer. And now we've gone back to staring at our cell phones all the time. So there's always this point of light that we're concentrated on. And it seems to be a way that we're able to call up our memories and form links with each other. So San Bernardino as a point of ignition, I think, is very powerful.
Wow, I love what you said what you said about fire. You know, and going back to Ignacia, that it maybe had a lot to do with her fascination, just the fire and such a concentrated form of energy draws your attention. So I think I just heard in the news that there was a fire San Bernardino over the weekend. You know, it's a way of life, and people still live there, and you know, it just becomes try to prevent, but really you can't do much about it.
No, the sad thing is that more and more people are moving into the forest area. When I was living there, not very many people lived way out in the mountains the way we did. But as people build out subdivisions into the forested areas, we're going to have more of these fires. That fire that totally took out the town of Paradise in Northern California was just devastating, but they will rebuild. And I sent books to help them rebuild their library. But I'm not really sure that people should be living that closely with the trees if we want to continue to have a watershed that will provide water for all the other people who live in California. It's a dilemma.
Tom, let's jump to your photos, swap meets. I love swap meets. I practically grew up on the one here in Rubidoux. We call it the flea market, but you know, there's a lot of different words for it. And I love that you featured that, and also that, you know, throughout the world, flea markets, swap meets are a really part of life. Markets are a place where people come to sell, to buy, to have community, you know, and so it's really important that you included that and you put that in the book. And I was curious about more about the shots, and just, is that something that you do often, go to the flea markets? And
Yes, yeah, my wife, Renata, who died back in 2016, she and I were big junk collectors. And our house that was at 28th and D Street in San Bernardino looked like some kind of crazy person's museum. Everything in there was purchased at a flea market, a junk store, a yard sale. And all my friends knew I collected junk, so they oftentimes would show up at my door with something under their arm. And one of them, Don Woodford, commented on, "You might notice I'm slowly moving the junk pile from my house to your house." And of course, it was not at all cluttered. We had it very well organized. It was super fun and interesting. And so it kind of, as a little kid, I was inspired by watching the Addams Family TV show. I always wanted that house. And thank God in San Bernardino, Renata and I were able to recreate that house with all this crazy stuff. But you know, the thing that I love about the particular San Bernardino swap meet was, first of all, as we all know, San Bernardino has this rough reputation. And when I mentioned to people I'm photographing at the San Bernardino swap meet, they're like, "Oh my God, is it safe to go there?" And it's like, look, man, there's ladies, you know, selling, you know, tamales there. There's people nursing their babies. Yes, it's safe to go there. I mean, it's this wonderful atmosphere. Certainly, I would get up early and drive down D Street to go to photograph. And, you know, the street would be deserted on a Sunday morning. And the few people that were there would be, you know, homeless and some prostitutes and, you know, stray dogs. And it was such a sad scene going down the street. And then you come upon this amazingly joyful place of the swap meet, where there's people come from far and wide, because it was a big one, you know, and it was cheap to go in, and sometimes it was free. And there was so much wonderful camaraderie, as well as rivalry between the vendors, people like barking back and forth at each other, trying to like pull the customers over. You get to be picking through their stuff. I mean, one thing is that, I mean, Juan also Delgado, he also loves to swap meet. And so he and I would go many times. And it was kind of like also this beautiful experience of like when you're holding this object that, you know, many people have held before and owned before. And the way that Renata and I have certainly looked at our stuff was that we're only holding it for a while. And then one day we're going to pass it on and someone else is going to get this beautiful, like a McCoy vase that's like really super cool, or maybe some horrible looking junk store painting that's just, you know, it's so bad it's good kind of thing. And so there's just that experience of constantly recycling and passing things on, as opposed to going to the mall and buying something new that's, doesn't have a history. So I'm not all that spiritual of a person, but if I was, I would sort of say that the objects have a spirit to them that's carried on from person to person, and that there's something really wonderful about picking up an object and finding it, and finding that thing that really resonates with you, that hundreds of other people walk by and didn't care for, but it strikes you as being special and interesting, and so you bring it home and put it into your collection. And when I was photographing there were so many things to photograph. I mean, just within, you photograph the vendors, and I got to know all these vendors. And the other thing, as I mentioned earlier, is I give pictures away. So every week I would have pictures from the previous week. I bring little 3x5 or 4x6 prints. And when I see people that I have photographed, I give them a picture. And of course, people are like, what? You're giving me a picture? How much? No, I'm not paying for this. It's like, no, it's free. It's like, I just want to celebrate this great experience of being at the swap meet with everyone. And then within, so I'm doing portraits of people who are buying stuff. Within the book, there's some black and white pictures of people holding their stuff and showing me what cool things they bought, which was really exciting too. One guy, was on his phone immediately going to the Home Depot app and saying, look, this thing would have been $100 if I had bought it at Home Depot, and I got it for 15. So there's all that kind of excitement, enthusiasm about the hunt and finding great things. And within the pictures I make, I could break them into many categories. So there's portraits within the scene. And so there's a picture in the book of like I think it's Miley Cyrus or some pop star like poster, sitting in front of a car with a couple of guys having lunch. And it's like the only thing they have they're selling is this one, dumb poster they got. But within there, there's just all these great like pictures within pictures. And let's see, so Katie's asking me, do you have swap meet photos we can share? I do, but of course I don't have them kind of ready to share, so I would have to call them up, and it would, waste a lot of time. Sorry, Katie, I have tons of them, of course, as you can imagine. You might notice there's also some kind of maybe odd looking pictures of asphalt. It was one day when I was like working on my camera, I had it pointed to the ground and took a picture kind of by accident almost. And when I looked at it on the screen, it was digital. I was like, oh my God, what a cool looking picture that is. And I started seeing that asphalt, that cracked and broken asphalt, as being sort of a metaphor for the place and for the people of San Bernardino. There'd be these little weeds breaking up between the crevices, sort of suggesting some kind of resilience and determination and strength. There was also the patterns on the sidewalk of the white lines that had been painted, and these cryptic numbers that we don't know what the heck those are about. Also, periodically, somebody's foot would go into it from where they're walking by me. So anyway, there's just so many things at the swap meet to photograph, but the general sense was there was this wonderful sense of community, and it was emblematic of the very best things about San Bernardino, that kind of a humbleness and the recycling and a really gentle, happy spirit.
I smell another book coming.
I've been thinking about talking to Katie about showing this work for another book, and then going up to, our friends at Heyday. Oh, there we go. That's the one of, Miley Cyrus picture. Yeah. I thought it was so funny. It was the only thing the guys had that they're selling is that one thing as well. Yeah, so it was great fun experience. And it's a place that I treasure and go back to often. And in fact, all the belts that I wear, I get there's like a family, and the guy who makes the belts. And then when I went back and needed a belt recently, well, the dad was no longer there, but the son was making the belt. And the dad was at another swap meet that morning. So kind of an exploding, growing entrepreneurial experience happening. I was very fortunate in that I had an exhibition of the work down at the Orange Show. They have like a little gallery in the National Orange Show, right in the parking lot where the swap meet took place. And that was just really fun to be able to show my work in the swap meet environment as well. So anyway, I love that place.
Much, Tom. I really think that your perspective and your description might come as a surprise to people. Like you said, people might think it's a dangerous place, but here it is, a place full of life. It's full of people, community. So there's a lot to offer there in San Bernardino.
There's a lot to offer, yes.
Yes. And before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we got in a question here from the audience.
I just wanted to make a comment, if I could, Christina. I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank Katie for allowing me to be a part of today. Thomas, I'm looking forward to seeing more of your paintings and your photographs.
Thank
And
you.
Kathleen, I'm looking forward to holding the book in my hands tomorrow and reading your story. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the book too. I love the cover art. So thank you, Dina, for making that, Deenaz.
Thank you.
And Thomas, I love your attitude that we just hold these things for a little while and then we pass them on to other people, and that you sort of browse many, many objects, and then there's the one that calls to you, and you know that it's time for you to give that object a home for a while.
Yes.
Also, I think I might know that house that you live in now.
Yes.
I think one of my friends grew up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a great house. I love it. You know, I do. You know,
Yeah.
it's funny too, because after my wife died, I sold a ton of that stuff, and I sold it cheap. And part of people be like, why are you only selling this? And it's like, because I'm so happy to share it and pass it on. I gave away so much of her jewelry, just gave it to people, and just like, please take it. My wife would have been so happy to know that the next group of people would have this object and love it and treasure it.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Question, comment. This one is for Kathleen. She says, Francis Vasquez says, wonderful presentations. I would like Kathleen to discuss why she chose the short story genre.
Why I chose the short story genre? I write fiction and nonfiction. I've written 3 novels, and I have 1 collection of short stories published, and more or less another collection finished, but I haven't published it yet. The short story form, I think especially works for these San Bernardino stories because they're just long enough to give a taste of the background, of the setting, while still concentrating on just 1 or 2 main characters. With a novel, you can sort of stretch it out and have a lot of people, big families, big amounts of time. But a short story has to concentrate on a particular time and place. And so I think we naturally remember events in short story form. We can think of a memory when we tell someone about something that is essentially a short story. The big key being that as opposed to a shaggy dog tale, a short story also embodies the change that I talked about earlier. There is a point of transformation for the main character. I teach creative writing, if you can't tell. So I taught for some years in a low residency MFA program in Washington State. And I'm going to be teaching some classes through Hugo House through Zoom next month. So it's a different topic entirely, but eventually I'll get back around to teaching short stories again.
Well, we certainly enjoy your passion and your enthusiasm for it. You definitely have a knack. So we have a couple of other, so we're going to log off in a minute, but I did want to just say that we had some contributors that were joining us today as well. James Luna, Sant Kalsa, Al Chamberlain, and Erica Ione.
Yay.
So hello, and thank you for contributing. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tom,
Thank you.
Deenaz, and all of our other contributors and the audience members. Thank you to all of the artists. Again, this book is going to be available in Cellar Door Books, Amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can see some of the images that Tom was talking about today from the flea markets. And be sure to join us at 3 p.m. for Gail Brandeis, Christine, and Liz Gonzalez. So thank you again for joining us, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, Katie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Deenaz.